Now, many people are talking about trying to understand the psyche of President Vladimir Putin. What decisions is he likely to take next, and what is his end goal? If Ukraine does fall to Russia, what steps will Vladimir Putin take next, and how will he seek to counter the crippling sanctions, the financial sanctions that have been imposed on his country? Our correspondent Jody Cohen spoke to political analyst Arye Kovler on what he thinks Vladimir Putin could be planning next.
You've suggested that Putin's next move, assuming he does take over Ukraine, would be to end the sanctions by any means necessary. What means do you expect he will employ?
Over the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen that Russia under Putin has a very wide array of tools in their toolbox that they're willing to deploy against other governments in order to advance their policy aims. And whether that is something like subversion campaigns, running campaigns in other countries, fake or real, whether that is backing politicians, as we saw in the case of Donald Trump most famously, but others around the world, and whether that's in kind of much more direct and violent means like assassinations, coup attempts, terrorism. There's just a huge array of things that we've already seen that Russia is willing to do to some degree, and that was before Putin needed this even more. So I think now really all bets are off, and it could be that in the coming few years, assuming these sanctions hold and assuming that Russia doesn't fold or Putin isn't removed from power in the short term, that we will see Russia under Putin devoting enormous amounts of resource to do things that maybe were unthinkable just a couple of months ago.
You've said that Russia's foreign intelligence and security policy for the next few years will be devoted to destroying the bloc opposing his invasion. How do you think these countries should prepare for the onslaught that you expect will follow?
I think it's going to be extremely difficult and challenging for governments to respond to what I expect will be Russia's campaign. I think that, one politician will accuse another of being in the pay of Russia, but then the other politician will counter, you're just saying that in order to delegitimize me. On the security side, I think that many governments have already devoted over the last decade or so significant intelligence resourcing into monitoring the threat from Russia, and that's only going to need to increase, particularly domestic sanctions busting, things that get money into the country. I think that things that relate to long-term sleeper networks, which may have been in country for a long time, they're going to need to be kind of found and exposed. And on the more physical side, any politician or leader anywhere in the world who's outspoken about Russia and has an opportunity to either affect change or to hold the sanctions coalition together needs to be watching his or her back. I think that things could get really genuinely dangerous out there.
You said that Russia's best hope for smashing the international sanctions coalition is if Donald Trump is re-elected as US president in 2024. Can you explain what you mean by that?
So I think Donald Trump's affinity for Vladimir Putin and the strength that he's shown is no secret. Trump, as president, used to talk about it quite a lot. And his very odd personal one-on-one meetings with Putin, the notes of which were hidden, so still an item, a matter of concern. Trump is obsessed with the idea that it was Ukraine that somehow hacked the 2016 election in order to help Hillary Clinton. And of course, he asked Ukraine's President Zelensky to go and hunt down this information, as well as potentially do a campaign to smear the Biden family in return for giving him the 18 lead against Russia. So I think, Trump's instinct is to oppose any kind of measures on Russia. And I think he'll be very nervous about the measures that exist. But it's not just that. Joe Biden as president has really kind of, working with the European Union, led this international move to impose these broad sanctions on Russia. And a lot of that is about personal chemistry, relationships, friendships, willingness to listen. These are all skills that Trump doesn't have. Just putting him back in the mix might be enough to make it very difficult for the sanctions bloc to be maintained when another country decides maybe I don't want to continue, There won't be a US president saying, please don't. There'll be a US president willing to have a fight and about something else. Say, you can leave the sanctions if you give me something. So I think, it's very clear that if you are Putin right now, the best way to break up this bloc is to insert an agent of chaos at the top again. And that means Trump, who is, of course, best placed right now to win the Republican nomination in 2024, and has got to be, after Joe Biden himself, the second favorite, at least, to be president after them.
Thank you, Aryeh Kovler, for your insights. It remains to be seen whether Russia will manage to take over Ukraine in the days and weeks to come.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.